Well, hello everybody, it's Dr. Boz and we are live here on Tuesday night. I have just checked my numbers right before we started and I am in the middle of a fast that will not break tonight. So I have a ketones of 1.5, glucose of 73, and I did not start fasting until after the Super Bowl. I am planning on a Valentine's Day dinner with my husband. I am going to talk about a little bit of our BHB stuff as I get through the show later on, and use this to show you that my numbers hopefully will rise. If it's a good ketone product, it does rise. So this is the strawberry lemonade, or the cucumber lemon that's on sale this week. But let's get to the best part of the show. I have a great show for you tonight, something that I have never done on YouTube before, and that is show you a live case that we have unpacked in our 21-day metabolic kick. I'm looking at all the folks that are signing in. Thank you for all the new students that are tuning into the live, as well as lots of the names that I've seen week after week. So thanks for tuning in. I like to think of this as our support group in the middle of the week, and we work at reversing medical problems, and the case tonight is hardly a subtle finding of reversing a medical problem. I am going to begin by sharing that this case was our first case of the metabolic kick. It was last week, and the guest we're going to bring on in a minute, his name is Earl. He is 52 years old, and at the peak of his health problems, he weighed over 400 pounds. You're going to be surprised to see some of his stumbles along the way and his successes. And really where his origin of health problems started. It sounds like an almost idyllic family, a family that had a business where they packaged and had a factory of candy. So almost like Willy Wonka's live world here, where the access to candy as a child resulted in a astonishing health problems that didn't have a way out when he was looking for answers. So I'm going to unpack this with showing just a couple of slides of Earl, and I just want to say an amazing thing that I'll ask of the guests, and that is, Earl is a real live human being, so be nice to him. There are some snarky folks that end up on the Dr. Boz channel, but this is a vulnerable moment for somebody to get on a live event and talk about their health problems, talk about where they've struggled and where the secret sauce is coming from that he's getting so much better. So stick around. He's got some really great teachable moments. I'm going to bring, I have to do this right. No, not the right one. It is, don't give up on me, hang on. Yeah, this is the one I want. You'll see that Earl is right there on our live with me there, as well as some slides of where he started out. These are some of the photos of when he was over 400 pounds. And as we are about to unpack his journey in this 21-day metabolic kick, I'm going to give a little bit of foreshadowing in the setting of some of his labs. Once I get through this journey of what the labs started to tell me at the beginning of his story, I'm going to turn the microphone over to him and let him explain some of the places where he really, he had a barrier that we pointed out. You're going to have a heck of a time ever getting this weight off for good if we don't help you with a couple things. So let me start by showing some of his lab data. We're going to use something I love talking about. Hemoglobin A1C is something we've mentioned on the show many times. This is your average blood sugar, and we are going to plot this out to show you over the course of almost a 10-year period what his hemoglobin A1C did. So the first time it was checked, he was in 2016, so that is not quite 10 years ago. His average blood sugar was 137. His doctor probably wiggled his finger and said, you need to get this down, you need to get this down. And the next time he checked in, it was higher. It was an average of 142 blood sugar. During this time, that the word glycated hemoglobin A1C. That glycation means those extra blood sugars circling around his body were depositing on different areas of his body, of his joints, of his heart, of his red blood cells, which is how this test is measured. But he was young enough that maybe he didn't feel all that yet. The story continues to unfold for the next couple of years, where his hemoglobin A1C shot up to 7.1. He is officially diagnosed with diabetes somewhere in this journey. And then, in the matter of a few months, he takes his average blood sugar from 154 all the way down to 97, an A1C of 5.0. And for the next couple of years, keeps that average blood sugar low enough that, well, most doctors would be erasing the diagnosis of diabetes from his history, from his chart. As the last couple of years have unfolded, the problems have haunted him a little bit. And I contend that you could see this coming if you had a look into some of his habits and some of his history. So before I bring him on stage, I want to do one more thing, and that is show you what happened when you look at his weight. So it was in that 2016 where he was over 400 pounds that he said, all right, doc, I really do need to work on this. He lost a good 20, 30 pounds, only to see it come back on, most of it come back on when that A1C bounced back up in 2017. He hit that big 4.0 again in 2018 and then lost another almost 60 pounds. But notice his hemoglobin A1C did not drop much during that time. As you look at the next chapter, when he goes from that average blood sugar of 154 to an average blood sugar of 97, he loses nearly 100 pounds and is able to keep that average blood sugar down as well as his weight down. But then there's just this, your body is a little bit of, it's betraying him. He kept the weight off, but his blood sugars have continued to show him the danger, but also the memory of having that struggle. I think this next slide shows just a connection of the weights. So as you look at the pattern of his weight loss and his hemoglobin A1C, there is a similarity until his body gets to a point where it's having a tougher time turning around. So with that, I am going to, let's see, I gotta read my slides here to say, there we go, that's what I want. I'm gonna bring on Earl. Earl, it's really nice to see you again. Thank you for coming on to this live show and talking about your health problems.
You're welcome, glad to be here.
If everybody out there does a good favor to me that you can hear him, I'm going to keep going with this interview and watch to see if you guys can, if we're having any sound troubles. I've had it all checked and we triple checked, but I always like to hear it from the audience that they can actually hear me. Well, Earl, first of all, I love how your case, which was the first of our cases in the 21-day metabolic kick. We do 10 of them. And I picked your case because as we were looking for the best beginnings for a weight loss journey, you had a party foul. You had a beginning that wasn't so perfect. And it was actually one of your classmates, somebody in your small group that inspired you to say, I think I better do a little better job. Do you want to share with the audience what happened on the first few days where you said, okay, maybe I can try a little better?
Yeah, happy to. One of the important parts of this 21-day metabolic kick is finding your why. And I guess over the course of, since I started keto and really before then, when I had some failed attempts to try to get my weight under control and my blood sugars under control, was to try to find that why. And I usually just focused on the negative, which is motivating enough, but it's really not enough to kind of help you break through and do the things you need to do. But I think what made the difference this time was really finding that deep-seated emotional core of why I want to do this. And so I've had some success, but I need to do more. And really, it came down to, you're right, it was one of my classmates who inspired me. But it really comes down to freedom. It's not only freedom from the bad stuff, cancer, heart attack, brain fog, sleep apnea, stuff like that. The kind of the dark alley of where you see this heading if I don't do something. But it's really the freedom to be an active participant in life, to not be the last one on the hike, to just, be around for my parents, my wife, my children, and not to be a burden, on them, to be strong.
Yeah, and you followed the channel for a while, as well as several other keto leaders, and you've heard my lesson on when you have that hemoglobin A1C sneaking up and not going down, it is associated with several of those health problems that are not going to go away until this problem is fixed at its core. And when you have a wonderful family origin that comes from hardworking folks that, well, they make people happy with their candy, with selling candy as a factory level. So talk about that as you look back, saying, yeah, these were some of the most comforting or skill sets that when life got hard, or when I got stressed, or even when you did well, you had gotten through college, you have this amazing, did really well in your scholastics, and then landed a wonderful job, and the celebration came with
food.
Right. So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, what is your favorite? What was your favorite comforting food, even when it was a positive or a negative?
It's my dad used to say, "There's not a problem chocolate can't fix." So it really anything. I mean, anything you could find in a grocery store aisle, candy aisle, or convenience store. It was almost anything. But it was. You're right. It was kind of an idyllic childhood, and it was a lot of fun, a lot of hard work. But along the way, I just learned some really bad habits. My fault, and I take responsibility for that. But it was great. Part of an extended family with a lot of great uncles and aunts, and so it was a lot of family reunions and church events, and hard to go to anybody's house where they didn't offer you a sliver of a dessert. And in the South, a sliver is anywhere from 400 to 1,000 calories, depending on who's cutting it.
Right. Well, you described and shared this with the class that it was this Friday night event where you went to Dad's favorite, place where they, fried shrimp or something, and then you'd come home and your mother would have meringue pie at home. Like, not only was eating out the part, but it was the homemade stuff was to follow that. Like, yeah, your mother puts all of us to shame.
Food was love. Food was success, so yeah.
So how old were you when you hit 400 pounds?
I was probably, I guess it was 10 years ago, so I'd be 42-ish, early 40s, yeah.
And at that time, did you have any of the medical problems you have now, like atrial fibrillation or some of the diabetes that have been stamped onto your chart?
Not at all.
So as you watch those 10 years unfold, how many years did it take before the doctor starts throwing a bunch of pills at
you? It was really not until the type 2 diagnosis. I mean, every year when I went for my physical, I got the, hey, this is what you weigh, this is what you should weigh, you need to do something about this. But pretty early on, it was, really no meds except for gout. Until I was diagnosed. So then I got the metformin and some other things. So,
well, when I look at a history like yours, I think the other term that really I took notes on what my team. Oh, hold on, my notes are right here. Yep. And what my team wanted, Bus remembered about your case, and they said, not only was it the why and how he had a hiccup saying he had a little bit of a why, then really dove in to say, if you want this to stick, those habits that you learned from your mother, from your dad, from your aunts, from your uncles, from the community that showed you this is what family does. And now we're going to say, if you keep going that direction, you're going to be 6 feet under far sooner than the rest of your family wants you to be, or allows, or the medical problems won't allow you to actually be participating in life.
Right.
So talk about the moment where you started this class, and just remind folks that, had you ever fasted before?
I have actually. When I started keto in 2019, it was maybe a month into it that I'd fasted a little bit. Starting out with 24 hours. I actually got up to a 5-day fast once, but
how'd that feel?
Never a sardine fast for sure.
And when you do we're going to show some numbers off here in just a second for your sardine fast, because it plays into the part that when I was looking at your health risks, we have that. I'm going to go back to our side-by-side video. We have this, scrambly lines showing your A1C and your weight. And when we add the next layer over it, it was to look at your uric acid. So you had been diagnosed with gout. And when we look at the process of why does the body make uric acid, it becomes this thing where it's somebody else's problem. People with trouble with metabolic syndrome don't actually talk much about their uric acid unless they have gout. And one of the lessons that I've added to just the way I teach patients, the way I help folks through this 21-day, is to say, not only should you be dropping that hemoglobin A1C, but you should be dropping your uric acid to the same number. Like, we want your A1C to be 5-ish or lower, and having your uric acid down there is also a goal that I contend is a great health goal. Now, before you started this class, did you have any correlation that the uric acid and your metabolic process or your metabolic health was related?
Absolutely no idea. To me, I just viewed them as kind of separate things, not interconnected at all.
Well, and when we took on your case, the other reason I did it was because I had so many students that were kind of like, well, how does that have anything to do with my health? Why are you focused on this? So I'm going to take the liberty of being the show producer and steal the mic for a minute as I review this. I have reviewed these slides just a hint in a couple of other places, but I did a really good job when we were talking about your case, that uric acid is a crystallization of purines, of this breakdown. I like to actually show patients that uric acid is a place to park the waste product for a hot minute before you take it out into the urine. When you look at the word uric acid, you give it to somebody who hasn't been to middle school biology, and they'll think urine. That word is right there in the first few letters. And when you watch the waste that goes from our food to our metabolism, our cell breakdown into our urine, uric acid is a really big carrying unit for those particles of waste. Normally, this is what happens. Those uric acid crystals deliver in a normal pattern, in a normal pace, at all times in our body. We are taking that cycling waste and we are removing it. When you watch the waste product inside the kidney, that this little image comes to mind, where the urine and the blood meet is right there deep inside the kidney, called a nephron, and that urine will pull those crystals out of the blood, and then you pee them out. And everybody that's walking the earth does this. But nobody hears about this uric acid stuff unless they have what you've been diagnosed with, which was gout. And I contend this is something healthy people should be looking at, because I want to know, what's your waste? What is the amount of uric acid that your body is using, is churning? And I contend when you were 400 pounds, you might not have had gout yet, but you were in the process of doing what this slide is about to do. So you didn't just have a few trickles of that uric acid, you had a whole bunch. Your body, especially in the setting of that excess sugar, that excess glucose and insulin, had so many crystals forming around that it would exit the epithelium. It would deposit into the tissues around your body. Now, in this pictorial, I have the hand over here, the finger as a place. Classically, though, it's the toe that people say, well, isn't gout just something that happens to your toe? Can't you just, lop it off and have it over with? I'm like, Oh, no, 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 no. Uric acid, these little crystals are, well, they're found in the plaques of patients with dementia. They're found in the plaques of coronary arteries for people who have had heart attacks. And I contend they are the process where this crystallization does collectively start in the little tissue right outside the capillaries, but it will form in places like the big toe. It gets big fanfare there, but that is one of 1,000 places that we can find uric acid crystals as people get unhealthy metabolically. So one of those ways to measure metabolism was your A1C, and as it was going up and down, your body was really good at tucking it away. I couldn't measure it in your blood. When was your first gout attack?
Probably early 2000s.
Okay, so you'd had one, and then not one again for a while, or one after the next after the next?
Kind of gradually building up over time. I can definitely connect the weight gain with the increased gout attacks.
Perfect. So when I look at this uric acid, I like to point out when people have gout, they're trying to reverse it. I can give you allopurinol. I can give you a drug that helps your body pee it out a little faster. But that is really a tiny component of what's really churning in the background. And your case is a very helpful way to show this. You were having a setting, I just have a tickle in my throat. Hold on. Thank you. You had a setting of really high insulin. The insulin was high because the glucose was high. And in that setting, you will find the uric acid crystals are trying to navigate their way out the back door, which is your urine, but they have to get around all those dang crystals. All those dang molecules of glucose. So as we watch the insulin reduce when people are on a ketogenic diet, those blood sugars will drop, and we really do take less of the space in your circulation. There's less fluid around, but there's also a better place where the uric acid crystals that used to be stored in your toe, well, they are now pulled back into the circulation where they were supposed to be, and they are now then dumped into the urine, and the reversal process of getting that stored uric acid out of your big toe, but also out of parts of your brain, out of parts of your heart, is this steady, slow process that when we lower your insulin, we also lower your uric acid in the whole body, but you might not notice that when you first start on a ketogenic journey. During any of the times where you've gone keto, have you ever caused a flare of your gout?
Yeah, it seems like I have.
Yeah, not uncommon. As that blood sugar declines, it yanks it out of the toe, and boy, they come in hollering at me saying, I thought I was supposed to feel better on your dang ketogenic diet, and all I got is a big toe, my gout's rah, 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 rah. And I'm like, it is really good for you. Try saying that to somebody. I want to hop over and let you tell a couple things about this part of your story. I want to go to, I think I'm going to go to the websites. Let's see if I can do this. It might not work on this other one. Hold on here. Safari, Dr. Boz, what? Oh, I'm going to do this. Oh, yay. That's what's supposed to happen. Okay, so like this is your readings that in the 21 day, we have everybody have a meter where they're checking their fingers, they're pricking their finger, and they're checking glucose and ketones. First of all, had you ever done this before?
Checked my glucose when I had type 2 diabetes. I had checked my ketones a few times, mostly with ketone strips, but a couple of times with strips, but nothing like this. I mean, nothing consistent at all.
Well, so you started out the 21 day, and your glucose, I'm not sure if it's going to let me do that. Your glucose is, well, to just see what the line is, 120. Oh, yeah, there it's reading. So yeah, started out with your glucose 120 in the morning, which we don't like triple-digit blood sugars in the morning.
Right.
Even if you're diabetic, we try to show you, hey, there's a way to get this down if you're working with us. And your ketones were about 0.4. And then last Sunday, we said, all right, you get one thing on the menu, and it was sardines. So why don't you share with people what happened as these numbers of ketones went from 0.5 all the way up to 1.2?
Yeah, it was an incredible metabolic flex just over those 3 days, eating nothing but sardines. And I'm not a big seafood person, and I'm not even sure I'd include sardines in with seafood. It's something else. But it became palatable. So, what it helps you do is really decouple pleasure from eating. And it was really effective for me because there were a couple of meals that I skipped. I'm like, I'm really not hungry enough to open that can of sardines, and maybe just let me push through and see, but it ended up being a really good exercise.
Well, and as you did this, did anybody else in your family join you on the sardine challenge?
Actually, not yet, but my wife's doing it this week. So
really?
she's probably 24 hours in right now. So she's got a couple more days to go. But she's doing it.
When you look at that process of somebody using a fuel source that comes from fish is not that foreign to our menus if you look at evolution, but man, there are dozens, might I say 100, half the class that has never ever eaten one. And as we say, it's the only thing on the menu for 3 days. I have many who said, I bought them, I heard about this, I bought a can, but I've never opened it. So it's something that your wife's willing to eat them and join with you. So you get to this, and I want to point out something that your doctor probably did not have the ability to do. But we got, again, a type 2 diabetic on several medications to lower blood sugar, and we change the menu up and say, no, you know what? We need these morning fasting sugars to be in the 2 digits, not the 3 digits. And when we got done with the sardine challenge, you have look at that. You have been a 2-digit blood sugar ever since, which is remarkable. That is something your doctor has thrown meds at you for seasons and seasons and not gotten that done. When you got done with the sardine challenge, you went back to what we send people back to their baseline eating window. So what do you think that's going to be for you as you study yourself?
I feel like that baseline eating window is going to be opening that eating window early morning. I usually get up pretty early, so eating breakfast and then maybe the last meal of the day at noon. That seems to work best. Mm-hmm. When I eat late, the fasting glucose levels are never good, and the ketones are kind of knocked out. So that's a rhythm that is comfortable for me, and I think it would work for me and probably my family as well. So.
Well, when you look at that, I think that's something that is really difficult for people to get their heads around, that when you're checking that morning fasting ketone and checking that morning fasting glucose, if they've eaten in the afternoon or evening, share what it was with you. Like when you do that, what happened?
Yeah, the morning glucose would be a lot higher than it has been. It would be in the 120s, 130, something, just depending on exactly when. Like if we were up late watching a movie and ate something really late. So yeah, it's not a good effect.
Are you a football fan?
Marginally, Super Bowl and some college football.
Okay, so you were able to watch the Super Bowl on Sunday night, which we're in the Eastern time zone, so that was going on till like 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
How did you do it saying no to food that late?
I don't know. I think this 21-day metabolic kick's been really helpful. And if I could just plug it here for a second, I think it's the best healthcare dollar I've spent, and the class isn't over. So you've got these bookends of the 8:30 to 9:30 sessions with you in these incredible cases. and all of this teaching and knowledge and access to all these resources. And then, my coaching session is later in the night with a small group and Coach Julie. And that's an incredible group of people, learning from each other. And it's really being part of that group process. And I'm not a group person. I'm an introvert. It's not my nature. But I can really see just in these few days the power of being accountable to, someone else. I mean, we all help each other. Everybody has strengths and weaknesses. We can share learning, and it's really been a powerful session. I don't think you're charging enough for it. Again, best healthcare dollar I spent. And if anybody's on the fence about doing it when it's available next time, just do it.
I'm going to pay him to say that. I'm going to pay him. Wow, that's really nice for you to say that.
No, it's sincere. It's sincere. It's been incredible.
When you were at that Super Bowl party the other night, did you think of the accountability that if you have a bite of this, it's going to show up on the dashboard the next morning?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I've got to put it I've got to track what I eat. And then I know whatever I eat, I'm not going to escape when, the small group, when we're talking about this. And I've got to explain kind of what happened, which is really good accountability for me.
Well, and you look at that influence that we all have from our primary homes, our homes of origin, which you had an idyllic one. There's lots of love in that family. It's just that the way they were showing love is causing such pathology in our communities that I don't think you have enough doctors in the world that are teaching people one-on-one to be able to do this. And I actually think it sends the wrong message. The fact that you're teaching your wife how to do a sardine challenge, and by teaching it, really you're just showing her that you were able to live through 3 days with only sardines. Yeah. And, her dear husband, who has a very high risk of an early death, a very high risk of dementia, a very high risk of vascular disease that robs him of his life, not just the years, but the quality. And as she sees you be able to control those numbers for the first time in probably a decade, that should be inspiring to her to say, whatever I can do to help him do that more often is a win.
Yeah, she's been a great support. She started she's fit and healthy, a lot more so than I am, and happens to be a nurse. So she's been a great help to me. I could not have done it without her. She started keto with me, and we've been, succeeded together and failed together. So it's really important to have that support where you can get it, whether or not it's, at home or in a group, preferably both.
Yeah, one of the things that I had pushback for at the beginning of this process was, you're going to talk about medical problems with one another? I'm like, It's really exciting. It's their blood sugar and their ketones. It's not, there's not a lot of secrecy around it. But I also think that the thought that you need to have a medical professional teach you how to eat this way is ridiculous. There are some things that definitely I'm allowed to do what I love to do, which is get into that advanced level of teaching with some of the cases that I do think people are very curious about. And it isn't a place where you can say, hey, come on into this exam room and I'll show you how we do this. But it's almost like that's what gets unpacked in front of people. In fact, one of the things that I used your case for was you had a habit of eating late at night. And you've just talked about how your eating window is going to be much different. But you said, yeah, every time I walk through that door in the garage, tell them what you did.
Yeah, I'd walk through the door, pet the dog, kiss the wife, hug the kids, and head right to the refrigerator. And it was not for a piece of chocolate cake. It was for, something low carb, probably, pepperoni or cheese or something like that. But that was a real struggle. So I learned that I've got to do something different. So instead of coming in the back door, in the front door, and, some people will hear that and say, oh, that's pretty insignificant. But it's really not. You've got to break the habit of being yourself.
Right.
And, and if that's what it takes, and if it looks crazy to an outsider, then so be it. It's effective for sure.
Right. So breaking a habit is part of how do you stop like your mind is numb. I've had a long day. I deserve, that moment where you're just mindlessly doing what it is you're doing, and you're doing way better than you used to do. So all of those points add up until you look at your morning glucose saying, Earl, we got to tighten this up. You can't do that. You got too many years that you've done that. And as you say, well, reroute your entrance into the family. Like, don't go through that door. It really is the place where the mindlessness has to be broken enough to change habit number one. And that is that, it's such a common routine that I say it out loud, and I was really happy you recognize this is a place where I just keep doing this mindless thing that I don't know how to break the habit. And that's the beginning stage one. Well, one of the things we do in a case is we let you ask questions. So do you have questions that, we touched on a couple of them that I know, I said, let's make sure we talk about these, like the uric acid, but what else was a question of yours that you either didn't get all the way answered or you want me to recover?
Sure. I wanted to ask you about I know you've talked a little bit in the morning sessions about ketones in the heart. And specifically ketones and AFib. So can you talk a little bit more about that, how ketones can improve conditions like AFib and whatnot?
Well, it's a great question, actually, because I get it a lot. In fact, in the chat, I will have people saying, can I reverse my atrial fibrillation with a ketogenic diet? And over and over and again. Probably if I had a bot go search for that, it would be 1,000 times someone's written that question. So you are not alone in answering this. And I think one of the most important parts about looking at all these chronic problems, that's what internal medicine doctors do. We take care of the long game. We take care of the problems that are not going to go anywhere for a while. And if we do our job, you don't even notice the ones that we aborted, that we stopped from coming, that were destined for that type of health problem. And I think it's almost the opposite for atrial fibrillation. Once atrial fibrillation sets in, most doctors are like, oh, there's nothing you can do, there's nothing you can do. So let me describe how you got atrial fibrillation in the first place. So you've got that chamber of the heart that goes lub, and then the chamber of the heart that goes dub. You got top and bottom. The top squeezes the blood into the bottom, and the bottom squeezes the blood all the way to the heart. And it's this nice, beautiful rhythm of lub dub, and you're, day and night. This is what your heart's been doing forever. And as you put on weight, especially in the setting of high blood sugar, even if the blood sugar wasn't super high, it was high blood sugar plus that excessive insulin caused your circulatory system to hold on to extra fluid. And when you go dissect a heart, or even look at a heart of another animal, you'll see that bottom number, that ventricle, is a really thick, strong muscle that propulses the blood throughout your body. But the top part, that atrium, is more like a loose plastic grocery bag. It's just this thin-walled muscle that really collects the blood, and this tiny little contraction in that thin-walled upper chamber pushes the blood into the big pump. And it's stretchy. When the fluid got into your heart, especially, correct me if I'm wrong, did you have sleep apnea for a while?
Yeah, still do. Yeah.
So when that sleep apnea was undiagnosed or in the process of happening, the pressure inside your chest when you were holding your breath got really high. And that creates this vacuum of the fluid builds up in the lungs and in that first thin-walled bag called the atrium. And you start to stretch the muscle. So what used to be a muscle that was probably interconnected like this starts to stretch, no problem, then stretch a little more, no problem, and then stretch a little more. And now the fibers don't touch anymore. And some of those fibers are the electrical current that's making the contractility of that muscle happen. And I know this is a longer explanation than most people want, but it is to show that when that stretch happens, well, the wires sending the electrical current to do the contractility, well, they make mistakes. And what used to be this nice linear message that said, okay, everybody contract, you get the top little, you get it quivering. And it starts to, well, gravity helps out a little. Well, it just keeps, pushing it forward a little bit. And the ability to move blood around your body is compromised because that top chamber is just doing this kind of goofy, it looks like an octopus. It's like it's just slowly moving around instead of a nice contractility. And the saddest part about that is you don't notice. People are in atrial fibrillation for months, and we know that the longer that blood kind of hangs out in that upper chamber without a nice squeeze from the top to push it to the bottom, this rhythm, it's this quiver and then a contraction and quiver and then I can't even pat my head and run, but it's this asynchronous mismatch of a rhythm, and that blood in the top chamber runs the risk of having a blood clot in it because it's not moving. So you say, well, what does keto have to do with that? Well, number one, your ability to reduce the pressure inside that atrium, those top chambers of the heart, it is possible when you decrease the volume. When people go on a ketogenic diet and they get the pushback, oh, it's just water weight, you're just peeing off all that weight. And well, part of what you're removing in those first 10 to 15 days of a ketogenic diet is the extra fluid that really stretched out that atria and made it do this. When you remove the fluid, it doesn't go right back to what it was, but it gets a chance of connecting again. And the number of years you've spent in atrial fibrillation will predict how well the heart stays in and out of that rhythm. So you live in 2024. There's lots of procedures that you can do to get that heart to go back into rhythm and then have the chance of going off of that anticoagulant. I'll tell you, these protocols exist, but I see doctors super nervous about ever doing the protocol. And the reason is when people go out of atrial fibrillation, they usually don't stay out of it. The reason they don't stay out of it is those behavior changes about walking in the other door, that's what they didn't do. Yeah. Their why was a little wimpy, and life got hard and they said, forget it, what's one night off the plan? So that the remodeling of their heart is possible. And even if you're the wiring has been mismatched for so long that your cardiologist says, well, I can go in and fry off that, the nerve that you're not supposed to use, and we can try to get you back in rhythm. But what he's secretly whispering in the back of his mind is that it's not going to stick. It never sticks. It isn't going to stick. Yeah. Because statistically, it doesn't. But if they are living in a really good ketogenic state and they've lost the weight, I mean, we'll talk about where your weight is today in a couple minutes, but you've already gone from 400 pounds into the, over 100 pounds of weight loss. And as you look at the next season of your life, that remodeling of the top chamber of your heart, the longer it goes from its normal anatomy to shrunk back down is a predictor of whether or not it'll ever find its own rhythm back on its own. When the cardiologist goes in and fries off the erroneous, the new pathway, what he's expecting is that you're not going to stretch that muscle out again. And if that weight comes off and that ketogenic state stays solid, well, that's when we get this miraculous stories, which are very rare, but are only possible if they change the habit and stay in this season of ketosis. So when people write in and they haven't seen a ketone in 20 years, and they say, "Can I get off the ketogenic diet with can I get off of my my AFib medications with a ketogenic diet?" I say, next question. It's a long answer because they got to go through the learning curve that you've just gone through in the last 10 days or 15 days. Yeah. And that's not a small feat. That's a lot of work.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, thank you for that. That's encouraging. That's encouraging. So I've been on the last week was a sardine fast, doing the 72-hour water fast this week. So my plan was to do, after this ended, my goal is to get DBRs, Dr. Boz Ratios, in the 40s. So my plan was to just continue to do one 72-hour water or sardine fast for the next 8 weeks at least. And my question is what's your opinion of that, number one? And number two, is there a danger over that 8-week period that these 72-hour fasts are going to be less of a metabolic stress? And, if so, do I take a couple weeks off and start back? Do I stretch that time out?
Well, that's a great question, and I haven't had that question in the class yet, so this is perfect. When you look at your numbers here, I don't know if y'all can see I don't think you can see my cursor. Well, I'm gonna dial in a little bit here. So this part where it says above February 8th, that's where he was on the sardines only, and now we're closer into that February 12th. Where I think I can make it go, there you go. His ketones yesterday were 1.6. He woke up this morning and at ketones of 1.0 and a glucose of 99. This is during his water fast. And at this time this morning, how many hours had it been since you'd eaten? 36, right? Like after the Super Bowl or before the Super Bowl? So about four, somewhere.
Yeah, it was early Sunday, Sunday afternoon.
So you're at 48 hours now, but at this point, maybe you were 30, maybe 40 hours. When you look at your body's response to what you did during a sardine challenge and what you're doing during a water fast only, well, that helps me answer what's the best thing for you to do as you get out of the class and you go on your own, you go in the wild, like as we like to say. The first thing that I point out is when people are insulin resistant, and you are definitely insulin resistant, when you don't go without food for 48 hours and you still have a blood sugar of 99, that's by definition insulin resistant. I'll be very curious when you wake up in the morning what your blood sugar will be on the third day. It is those with insulin resistant that they often have to push to that third day of fasting to really suck the glucose right out of their liver to get to the place where they increase that metabolism. But you did have a boost in your metabolism with the sardine challenge. So you saw those ketones rise and those glucoses went under 100, so you did get an improvement. It is so once you have the tipping point that you've already passed, meaning you pushed your metabolism and it rose to the challenge. You didn't fail, you didn't get faint, you didn't have this, existential crisis that you didn't live without food. You really had metabolism that showed up for you, it did what it was supposed to do, and you did okay. 4 days later, when we said, okay, now take away all food. So far, you're doing fine. You look like you're thinking well. You're not. How do you feel?
I feel good. I feel really good. The brain, just the clearness in my thought patterns and whatnot. The mental clarity is what I'm trying to say. Fasting is incredible.
Yeah, right. And I'll tell you, when people have insulin resistant, if they haven't done that sardine challenge, it's truly a big part of how we set this class up, that we want everybody to succeed. And you know that we don't say everybody has to fast for 72 hours, but we put that out there and say, we're watching your numbers. When we ask people to do 8 weeks of 72 hours, we want you watching that as well. We want you looking at how did my body do? Because it's really easy. Ask me how I know. It's really easy to talk yourself into, I'm done. This is over. Yeah. This is so yesterday. I'm going to eat. I did so well. I did better. And when you add data, it's really hard to say that because I'm like, your blood sugars are still 99, honey. You might want to go another day. But at the end, one of the videos that it was probably my favorite video ever researching and really putting it out there because I just didn't see anybody else delivering this information was, what do you gain in those 72 hours when you start at a ketogenic level? So we push people into that sardine challenge after we clean up their carbs. And by this point of the class, we're in the third week and people are fasting for 48 hours for the first time in their life. And their metabolism is doing well. They are producing ketones. Their glucoses are not perfect, but they are definitely better than they've been. And when you watch how that would have unfolded had we started with a 72-hour fast, instead of priming the pump, really cleaning up their behavior, talking about some of the psychological things that are definitely part of the equation, you would have seen a bunch of people crash. You would have seen them feeling terrible, dropping blood pressures, crabby, negative reviews, this is the worst class I've ever taken kind of thing. Instead of, I didn't think I could do it. I just did it. And I think that's what's so inspiring when you do have a group of people saying, yeah, I couldn't have done this on my own. I would have given up by now. When I look at your healthcare, one of the things in your equation, in your reports, I'm gonna show this question this way. I put that same data in a chart. So I'm gonna click on a button here and show them what I'm talking about. So here's that same information that I put on a graph a minute ago, that it is not an accident that your A1Cs got pretty good, yet your uric acid was still very high. I mean, I want it at 5 or less. Why do I want that? Because you support your family with your brain cells, and they're not going to do well when you're putting uric acid in between those brain cells. And you're not a spring chicken. You've been around the sun, what, 64 times, right?
52.
Oh, 52. Sorry, 64, yeah, 62. 52. Too many patients in the last 2 weeks. And as we look at that improvement that you've gotten the weight down to 300, and it was, I think, a little over 310 when we started the class. What I push patients to really notice is you do need the 72-hour challenge to really say you don't want to wait till you're 64 to reverse the next 100 pounds. Or I can't remember how tall you are. What's your goal weight?
Goal weight's 225.
Okay, so yeah, you've got a good 75 or 85 pounds to lose before that goal weight is possible. And it's at that point that we can have some different conversations, or when you are nearing that goal weight. For now, you have 100 pounds of stored energy in the form of fat on your body. And when using this anti-inflammatory process, not only does the waistline sink down, but those deposits of junk, it's of urine in crystal form. It's the waste products that you didn't have the capacity to remove from your body in past chapters of your life. You've got to get it out now. And there is hardly a better way to reduce that uric acid than a repeated fast long enough to lower that glucose into the 60s. I mean, when I fast, I don't remember what it was today, but when I fast, I get down into the 50s and 60s, not because I'm trying to, but because my metabolism really is good enough that the energy I'm making with ketones, I don't miss it. And in a case like yours, yes, 72-hour fast for 8 consecutive weeks, not only would it gain you the badge of honor in the Dr. Boz show, because that's the ultimate moment, they must be consecutive. And the reason for that is you are gaining a skill every time you do one of these fasts. But I will tell you, by about 72-hour fast number 6, people say, good enough. And what happens is they let the distractions in life, because there's always something. There's a funeral, there's a wedding, there's a celebration, there's 4th of July, there's this, there's that. I mean, there's a Super Bowl party. There's always a distraction where food will pull you towards that. And when they get 8 of those in a row, it really communicates a message to me that they have sorted out that they can say no to distractions enough to heal their body. It's also a setting that someone who's been carrying around this excess weight, I want your brain to work until the moment you hop in the grave. And that means you got some waste to take out. And the fastest way to do it is a 72-hour fast, water fast. The sardine fast isn't a bad thing. In fact, I've had people say, I do a sardine fast one week and then I do a water fast the next week. And I do a sardine fast the one week and I do a water fast the next week. And what's happening is they're working on the skill set. It is an advanced skill set to do 72-hour fasts, 8 consecutive weeks. It's a lot. There are not, probably more than 50 people that have written in to say, I did that. So don't feel bad. It's a lot. And a sardine fast plus a water fast is way better than neither one of those. And right. You're going to be heading in the right direction with either of those options.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
Well, are there other questions? I think we have a few questions from the crowd that I'll take here quick too. I'll let you go first though.
No, I can't think of anything else right now. Thank you.
Okay. So I want to make sure that everybody does know there are a couple things that I do try to support this channel with. One of them is that I do supply the ketones I talk about in my class, and I help people through the slump. This cucumber lemonade, the one that I took at the beginning of this this thing tonight, our live show. Well, the expiration happens on June 1st, and I have to sell them before them. So I think Amazon's not active right now, so you'll have to go to the website, bozmd.com, to get that product on sale. But I'll tell you, it's last year's prices at this year's time. So if you're looking for the way to stock up on something that I think they are expensive, I wish they were less expensive. So those ketones do a good job of helping people get out of a slump or get through a time where insulin resistance is really winning for them. So let's see, Earl, if the two of us can answer these questions together. I want to take this.
Okay.
Actually, I thought I could remove that. Let me go here and go like this. Oh, hold on. Let me just move this one more time. Safari. Oh, there we go. And unlock and take that up there and take this down here. There we go. Okay, almost there. It bothers the heck out of me, actually. Almost done. There we go. That's what I want it to look like. All right, so Ellen writes in and said, is bone broth acceptable during a fast? I read a couple of places in 2 books where it was done. All right, Earl, how do you think I'd answer that one?
I think you'd answer it if you absolutely positively have to have it. It's acceptable, but try to get along without it.
Absolutely. You know, the biggest reason bone broth was used in many of the fasting is to get the salt in. It's a super salty thing, and it does really help deliver salt because they expect the broth to be salty. And man, when you're fasting, there is nothing better than warm, salty broth is one thing, but water. So it's not a party foul, but if you want the highest return, like if I want Earl to say, we're going to check in with Earl and let's give him, 6 months to follow up with the doctor. His best 6 months will come from a time where there's not bone broth involved. It's a water fast plus salt for those 24 hours. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Lisa says, how often should we test the uric acid when done? What do you think I'll say to that, Earl?
I know we talked about the meter you recommended for uric acid, which I ordered. So I'm going to test mine daily.
Yes, honestly, it is one of the few things where I'm like, yes, I love Keto Mojo, and they do an awesome job of supporting the brands that are keto, but ForaCare is still the one who has a uric acid testing kit, and it really is a great way to hack your way through this. Not only should you know your own uric acid, but your doctor's going to say, you don't have gout. I'm not going to check it again. And I'm like, no. I want to get it to the place where it's normal. So when we check uric acid, here's some yes or no questions, Earl. Should they check it when they're fasting?
Don't remember that.
Okay, so I'm gonna take you back to the slides. When you fasted, your blood sugar went down, and the uric acid crystals from your big toe started to exit and go into the blood.
Okay, so no.
Yeah, so their uric acid actually rises during a fast when they're in a ketogenic state. And it is really, it's actually impressive. I had one of the patients buy like 3 boxes of this, so $300 worth of uric acid, and he just did like 5 or 6 tests in a day to see what's the best time of day to check my uric acid. Because it's not the same as when uric acid is tested in the clinic. In fact, the more I learn about uric acid, the more I learn about dementia and brains. There are some prescription medications that dramatically lower uric acid. And well, full disclosure, my husband has had gout, and he has this really highfalutin fluvoxostat is the name of it. It's like worth 12 or 13 of the allopurinol that is good for gout for removing uric acid crystals. And I will take a couple of those a couple times a week. I'm like, any uric acid that I can get out of my body is a good thing. But the reason we talk about it is that the removal of uric acid from storage isn't just the big toe. It is the place that's in your heart, which is causing an inflammatory reaction. It is the place in your brain. And there's pretty good literature that says, you know what? We took these teenagers who were both overweight, populations of teenagers that were both overweight that had high uric acid, and we gave one of them placebo pills, and we gave the other one something like allopurinol. I don't know if it was allopurinol, but, and they dropped their uric acid down to like 4. And the people who dropped their uric acid down to 4 lost weight. They didn't tell the teenagers anything that was going on. They didn't ask them to lose weight. They didn't ask them to change their behavior. They just lost weight. A significant amount of weight. So there is a crop of literature out there that suggests if you're stuck and you're not able to lose weight and your uric acid is high, you might want to actually just get it lower. Lower the uric acid because it's being a signaling agent to hold on to fat molecules. So yeah, that's another reason you should treat your uric acid. All right, you're doing great. You haven't been kicked off the show yet. Let's go back to the other question. All right, so Lisa writes in and says, how often, we already tested that one. Mark writes in and says, can't figure out what's going on with my uric acid. Tested at 8.8 recently, no gout ever. Other biomarkers look good. Well, Mark, I hope that after this show, you realize that uric acid, first of all, it will rise when you're when those crystals are exiting from wherever they're stored and heading to that kidney, that nephron, and into your urine. But just like with Earl, his uric acid was high when all of the other markers were doing better. It was from the history of time spent with high insulin that really kept this biomarker, this uric acid biomarker, high. All right, so Penny writes in and says, does uric acid contribute to arthritis? What do you think the answer to that is, Earl?
Yes.
Yeah, it's one of the many things, but it's also, just like it would inflame the cells in your brain, it really inflames it when you put those crystals into your joint space. Yeah. All right, John says, I have a strip meter and it says my uric acid is always between, 11 and 12.9, but I have no symptoms of gout. Should I be concerned? Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. All right, let's go to the next one. Dr. Boz, what are your thoughts on lipotoxy or glucolipotoxicity? I'd have to Google that. I don't know about that one. Do you know anything about those words?
Absolutely not.
Can't help me. I don't know.
Can't help you there. Sorry.
Okay. I'm on hour 23 of what I was hoping to be a 36-hour fast. My blood glucose is 72 and my ketones are 4.4. I feel terrible, cold, sweats, shaking, and weak. Is this normal? Have you been in the room when I've answered this question, Earl?
I think so. My knee-jerk reaction. Yeah, my knee-jerk reaction is you need some water, hydration, electrolytes. Mm-hmm. That's what I would reach for.
It's actually a really good start. The other part is there's a lecture that I gave to some of the classrooms. I think I'm doing it tomorrow, so you're going to see the slides tomorrow, where it talks about why is her glucose not able to get inside the cell. So she's got these ketones, her body can use ketones, but 4.4 ketones with a glucose of 72 says, I bet that glucose dropped pretty drastically, and her cells aren't able to use those ketones as readily as we want them to, and they're having a tough time getting the glucose across the cell membrane because of some insulin resistance. That might not make a lot of sense, but my slides tomorrow will help a lot with that. So I'll wait to show you tomorrow, and Jenna will have to, maybe I'll make a video of that someday. All right, we'll do one more question and then we'll call it quits. Penny writes in and says, do my ketones go up most times, why do my ketones go up most times after a workout? And then other times they don't. Glucose always goes up. I know I used stored glycogen. So any guesses for that, Earl?
Well, I understand about the glucose part. That's just like she noted, the stored glycogen there, but not 100% on the ketones. That's not been my experience for sure.
Well, it actually just says her body is signaling that it needs fuel. So one of the levers that she's practiced using ketones. And so as the body gets lower on fuel, which it's going to, that's why the glucose comes out of storage too, is it is lower on fuel. She will find, oh boy, my ketones are 4 after, 4, and my glucose is 78. So wow, that did its job tonight. Woo! A little high. But those ketones are a fuel source that if she wasn't keto adapted, they wouldn't move much at all. But when those cells that she's working out, the cells need energy. Yep, you're going to mobilize some of the glycogen that she stores in her muscle cells. She knows that. But in prediction for supplying a better fuel source, she is either mobilizing some fatty acids, and that's where the ketones are coming from, or her liver saying, hey, give her some ketones. She knows what to do with those. So it is really a reflection of keto adaptation. Well, I do want to say that, Earl, I don't put people on the show very often. I've been kind of stingy about, well, it's all the technical stuff in the background that gets me nervous, so I just go it alone. So you have successfully survived a live show at Dr. Boz where nothing technical went wrong, that I can tell at least. And I just want to say thank you. Your story of weight loss, but your story of really being able to look in the face of some serious health problems and say, how do I change behavior at 50? It's inspiring to me. And I know that there are many students in the class that said, yeah, I can do a little better job on my why as well. So everybody, I just want to give a lot of praise out to Earl. And any last words you want to say to the audience before you're done being YouTube famous?
I would say, consider the 21-day metabolic kick when it's offered again. At the very least, find a keto support group. And I want to thank you, Dr. Boz. Were it not for the grace of God and my wife and finding you in 2019, I'm not sure I'd be here.
Wow.
And so I'm very grateful to you. Thank you for all you're doing.
Well,
and
thank
for your
you.
courage.
Absolutely.